Hey, folks, good morning and welcome to another episode of Steelers Morning Rush. I'm Alan Saunders. It's Thursday, September 18th. The Pittsburgh Steelers have their second practice of week 3 today at UPMC Rooney Sports Complex on the south side. I'll be there with Brendan Howe, Ed Thompson, getting more info on your Pittsburgh Steelers. And, of course, me, Zachary Smith, right here on your YouTube channel, Steelers Afternoon Drive at 6 o'clock. Pelusi's Pick'em at 8 with me and Julian Pelusi, giving our picks for the NFL week to come, talking fantasy plays, prop bets, that kind of thing. Julie's been killing it with the prop bets so far. Let's check that out here at 8 o'clock on YouTube channel and your audio platforms. Today I want to talk about DK Metcalf. I got two questions, one via YouTube here and one via DM from A. Segan. Nope, that's a lie. Sorry. Yes, from Zach Howell. You guys have the same little avatar thing. Has Metcalf always had issues with his drops, or is this new? Metcalf does not have the world's greatest hands. I don't think he would say that. For a player his size, you would think he would be better at contested catches, but he has dropped a lot more of them this year than he has in the past. According to Pro Football Reference, he has 2 drops in 13 targets. Drops are completely subjective. There is no standard for drops. You may see one site say something vastly different than another about what is and what isn't a drop. But 2 in 13 targets is a 15.4% drop rate. The highest single season of Metcalf's career was when he was a rookie. He had a 7% drop rate. So this is more than double. Again, a very small sample size, but that is definitely more than we saw from him before. Now, objectively, like taking the subjectiveness out of it, you can just look at what percentage of his targets is DK Metcalf catching. Now, that isn't going to include the skill of the quarterback. If guys are whizzing it over his head at 100 miles an hour, he doesn't really have much of a chance. But so far in 2 weeks, he has caught 53.8% of his total targets. That would also be the lowest in his career. 55.5% was the previous lowest in 2023 when he ended up a Pro Bowler with Seattle and had over 1,000 yards. So let's stay here. Is this a problem? I think it's a little bit of a problem in that it really seems like the Steelers want to turn DK Metcalf into a high volume position receiver with elite yak ability. They are not trying to push the ball down the field to him very much. His average depth of target on these throws is quite low, 5.6. During his time with the Seattle Seahawks, his lowest average depth of target was 11.2. So he's running routes half as far on average, but dropping more. That's a problem because the risk reward is getting out of whack, right? If you're dropping more passes but running them shorter, then you're giving up incompletions, 0 yards, for the benefit of relatively fewer. His catches, his yards per reception is not down as much as his ADOT because he's getting a lot of yak. So we have to acknowledge that. He is 14.7 yards per reception. That's actually above his career average and sort of right in line. He was 15 last year. Should be right in line with expectations. But he's getting there a very different way. He's getting there by catching the ball short and running long instead of running deep. I think that's the right way for the Steelers to deploy DK Metcalf. I think without other receivers really dominating in any area, I think, and the fact that the offensive line does not look like it should be able to hold up for a normally long time. Aaron Rodgers can't use his legs to keep the pocket open longer. You're not going to have a lot of success on deep routes with this group. But between the offensive line and Aaron Rodgers, the deep ball does not look like it's going to be a strength of the Steelers. Not because Aaron can't throw it, because he doesn't have time to do it. He can't make it. The line can't provide it. So being an underneath yak and run offense seems like it should be the way to go. And so you put your best playmaker there and he can do that. The drops are a bit concerning. The total catch percentage to me is more concerning. That tells me that like these should be easy receptions. If you're throwing to a 6'4" giant of a freak of a man on a slant, he should be catching them more often than not. And Rodgers is already holding on the ball more than he needs to, more than he should. I think he should let some more of these go, but it's really hard to make that argument when even the best receiver is only catching a little bit over half of them. Yeah, I think that is it's definitely more of a problem than I think the Steelers expected it to be. But again, it's 2 weeks. So I would hesitate to draw any conclusions or make any changes based on 2 weeks of information right now. We'll see how it plays out. I think overall, I'm not disappointed with where the Steelers' passing offense is compared to the talent they have available in that area. And so while I think they probably were planning on DK Metcalf catching more of his passes, the Steelers are 18th in passing yards. Like they're 19th and tied for 19th in net yards per attempt. That's about where they belong. Like I don't really have a problem with that. If they could run the ball and their defense was playing like it was capable, 19th in passing will get them to the AFC Championship game. Obviously, we're far from there. Second question came via DM from a guy, Colin, who says, what's the word on DK so far? Not really getting targeted. No deep balls really his way. I guess my question is, like, why his lack of involvement? Well, he is getting targeted a lot. He's the Steelers receiver with the most targets significantly. He has on the season been targeted 13 times. Nobody else has more than 10. That's Calvin Austin and Jonnu Smith. And Kenny Gainwell, Pat Freiermuth, 9, 7, Jalen Warren, 6. Nobody else has more than 2. The lack of deep targets, I just don't think, like I said, the offense is built for it. I don't think that Aaron and DK ever demonstrated in preseason any kind of connection on those routes. A lot of, like, if you remember, the Steelers' 2-minute offense throughout training camp was really struggling. There were a lot of those missed connections on deep balls from Rodgers to Metcalf. I don't know why it wasn't connecting, but it wasn't. It seemed like right away the slants and the comebacks and the digs were where those two found each other naturally. And so I think that's the way they're going to go. I think 13, 10, 10 is a pretty normal distribution for your number one, number two top tight end. I'm honestly surprised Calvin Austin has as many as he does. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a lot more to give here in terms of forcing the ball to DK Metcalf. Also, he's dropping them. So is this really when you want to be forcing him the ball more? One of the obvious problems with this offense was that it was going to be pretty easy for other teams to take him away or to limit his ability to be impactful. And so, like, he got double covered a lot against Seattle. Most of the game, there were 2 guys on DK Metcalf. I would hospitalize any defensive coordinator that doesn't come up with that game plan right now. Who else is going to make you pay for that? I just don't see it. So I think until there's another receiver that can take some attention away, or the Steelers' offensive line improves to the point where Rodgers routinely has enough time to let DK work down the field more, I think this is kind of going to be what you have. But like I said, like, of all of the problems, the Steelers' passing offense is probably dead last on them in terms of their play versus their ability. They're pretty much at it. If you were expecting more out of the Steelers' passing offense, I don't know why. But the running game, yeah. The whole defense, absolutely. And then, of course, special teams that are not Chris Boswell also struggling. All right, that's all we got. Couple questions in a row on the same guy, and I don't think I've done a DK Metcalf focused episode since, gosh, maybe early training camp. So figured it was a good time for that. That's all for this morning. Got, like I said, afternoon drive coming up with 6, me and Smitty. Got some practice video coming out from Brendan here this afternoon on the YouTube channel, and then Pelusi's Pick'em, 8 o'clock. We're picking a couple NFL games. She's going to give her prop bets, which have been killing so far, and we'll get her prediction for Steelers Patriots. Till then, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.